Approximately half the world menstruates at some point in their lives.
Yes, I do menstruate.
I do not menstruate.
So why don't we talk about it?
Society has taught me to be embarrassed about it and to hide it.
Only talk about with other people who menstruate.
That menstruation is something that I should be scared of or grossed out by because it's
Unclean.
Not pure, a taboo. Confusing, painful.
Needs to be contained, plugged or stopped, and treated.
My name is Varsha, and for my undergrad thesis, I made a film about destigmatizing menstruation. My inspiration for the film took place at a conference in India in January of 2019, where for the first time in my life, I sat among a group of people who willingly engaged in a discussion about menstruation. There, I was shocked to meet men who were willing to talk about menstruation, women who spoke about loving the experience of menstruating, and people of all genders who are willing to talk about menstruation with one another. How do you feel about menstruation? Prior to this conversation, my relationship to my own menstrual cycle was largely ridden with feelings of shame and frustration.
Menstruation is taken as something which is really dirty and not a natural biological function, which affects the entire psyche of a girl as soon as she hits puberty.
For any teenage girl, starting your period is often full of embarrassment, with tears and worries about leaking in public. We all know about that.
Therefore, when I met people working to unlearn their ingrained menstrual stigma, I found myself inspired. I realized that the simple but radical act of open conversations can be a way to challenge menstrual stigma. My film, Bleed With Me, was born from this realization. My first step in the creation of Bleed With Me was to understand how menstruation is stigmatized. I used Erving Goffman's Stigma Theory as a framework to explore this question. Stigma Theory states that there are 3 categories of stigmatization. 1, abominations of the body. 2, blemishes of the individual character. And 3, social markers associated with marginalized groups. First, menstruation is seen as an abomination of the body through the cultural belief that menstrual blood is a dirty, repugnant bodily fluid.
Ew.
Second, menstruation is seen as a blemish of the individual character through the belief that menstruation always leads to physical and mental illness. Finally, menstruation is a marker associated to a marginalized group through the cultural belief that it is a sign of womanhood.
Because you're a woman, you know what to expect month after month.
Mother Nature, not now.
Oh, but I brought you your monthly gift, sweetie. You know, your period.
As such, menstruation becomes a sign of socialization into a system which values maleness and masculinity more than femaleness and femininity.
Society has taught me
that menstruation
Turns women into weaker versions of themselves.
This research clarified to me that an important facet of feminism, a movement to end sexist oppression, is destigmatizing menstruation. So I decided to talk to my community about it.
I'm ready.
My first question for you is, what is your name?
My name is...
Over the course of 4 months, I conducted 16 interviews with people of different backgrounds to better understand how menstruation is viewed by people around me. Through these interviews, I learned that menstruation is experienced extremely subjectively.
Menstruating is like a spiritual reminder for me of who I am and to take care of myself.
Honestly, if it was gone from my life, I'd be pretty happy.
Impacts people's lives very deeply.
I thought I had a stomach infection and there was blood in my bathing suit, and it hit me and I just got filled with dread.
I was so ashamed. I remember later that night I cried and cried.
And to be destigmatized requires social attitudes to shift.
It's important to note that not all female-identifying people menstruate, and not all people who menstruate are female-identifying.
I filmed the imagery for Bleed With Me inspired by a popular short documentary about birth control.
There isn't much else we can try. We can remove your uterus, or we can medically induce menopause.
My goal was to make Bleed With Me appealing enough to broad audiences that people will actually watch it and engage with the topic of menstruation, while also forcing viewers to consider what menstruation actually looks like. The main challenge I encountered when making this film was determining which story I wanted to tell from the 10+ hours of interview footage I had recorded. I navigated this by deciding my intention for the film. Just as the conference I attended in India inspired me to talk openly about menstruation, I wanted Bleed With Me to resonate with and inspire broad audiences to do the same. As a result, I let go of the depth, detail, and nuance of each person's story from the interview phase, and wove together small parts of each interview into a larger narrative about menstruation. The completed cut of Bleed With Me is a 6-minute film that has a very clear call to action.
I belong here on this earth, whatever my body does, and it's normal and it's natural, and I would really welcome the day when we can talk about this way more openly.
Yeah.
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 So we ask, will you join the conversation? Now, as I come to the end of my degree, I ask myself why I did this project. We all have the ability to take small, tangible steps to change issues that we care about. I saw the need to talk about menstruation, a highly stigmatized phenomenon that is experienced by approximately half the world at some point in their lives. While considerable work remains to untangle the complex web of sexist oppression, my film loosens and brings attention to one tiny thread. With over 30 people that participated in the making of Bleed With Me, I truly view this film as a piece of community art. I'm immensely grateful to all the people that made this film possible. Thank you to my mentor, Dr. Nagar Elmi, for believing in this project from the start. Thank you to Mitchell Schomburg for composing an original soundtrack. And thank you to my friends, family, and community for being the faces, ideas, and stories that shaped this film.